glad you mentioned it when we were talking about the disbelief and what's unbelievable and what isn't unbelievable, because you talked about the Luka Doncic trade, and we have to go back into that. Again, last night was Wednesday night. Luka Doncic, April 9th, first game back in Dallas since the trade. And I mean, he did what, Luka? 45. I think it was 17 in the first quarter. And they were cheering for him. The Fire Nico chants were going crazy at the American Airlines Center. And just when you thought that trade couldn't age any worse, it did. And Luka Doncic, and I tweeted this, the only second player in NBA history to score 45 points for and against the same team in the same season. The other one is Wilt Chamberlain. Anytime you and Wilt, the only people to do things, you're a bad man. So I guess I should just say, did you not think this trade could age any worse? Was it? I mean, I'm not surprised at all that Luka did this in this game, but man, it's just kind of like, I feel like Anthony Davis had a moment in that game, was like, shoot, I trade me for him too.
Yeah, that was like all the emotions and stuff before the game. That was a moment where I was like, I don't know, it kind of like humanizes things, and you're really like,
it does.
Damn. Like, and even in like the post game interview where he was talking to Lisa Salters, and he was like, I was an 18-year-old kid coming into the NBA. I didn't know anything about the United States or how they were going to receive me. And this place made me feel like, and like he made a comment of like, I finally got to sleep in my own bed. And that's where like, you really like, again, because it's so like, you just see the headlines and you see him on the court and you see him in the jersey. And yeah, it takes a little bit for like us as fans, people that cover the game, people that love the game, to get used to him in that Lakers jersey. But like, you're not even thinking about the fact that he has to uproot his life, and he's living in an apartment in LA, probably somewhere. And he isn't sleeping in his own bed, and he like doesn't know the city that he's moving to. And like, you know, there's just so many other factors at hand. And then like, there are moments like last night where he's like crying during the intro video. Right. And it's like, oh man, like, all right, yeah, there's a lot of other shit that's going on outside of basketball, and he's still continuing to play at the high level that he is. And then like, for him to be like, I didn't even know if I could play, and then to go out and just like drop 45 seemed like seamlessly, like with no hesitation, no like, you know, hardly broke a sweat. It's just, you know, it just goes to show the type of player that he is, and the killer instinct that he has to be able to just flip a switch and get into that type of mode. And, you know, for the Mavs, it's also like a tough, like it's just tough they didn't get to see it really play out the way that they wanted to either. I'm not saying that anything would have changed the way that like this trade looks like in the future, but I mean, I obviously was very high on what Dallas could have looked like after the trade, and then Kyrie gets hurt, and it's like, well, Anthony Davis is back on the court, and it's just like, it feels like something's missing. It's because you know, they're missing an all-star guard who is one of the most lethal scorers in the league, and you kind of, when you're watching that game last night, it's like, I wish we could see both products whole on the court and see what that looks like. But you know, another thing just to add on top of the pile of does not look good for the Mavs. I saw a tweet right before we hopped on here. Since the Mavs traded Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin has hit 2 3-pointers. Quentin Grimes has hit 79. It's just like, it just feels like they did everything wrong. They did everything wrong. And again, they didn't really get to see it come to fruition because AD and Kyrie never really got to pair up besides that one game, besides 3 quarters. But, you know, it's just, last night was another reminder that Dallas has a monumental offseason for the entire future of their franchise coming up. Because if they can't make even a semblance of a big swing to make that move feel like it was worth it in the short term, then, I mean, people's jobs are going to start. They're going to start coming for people's jobs, you would think.
Yeah, and to your point about that, like you said, I know you were high, you were confident about what it could be, and we never got a chance because on top of, you know, the AD injury in his first game and the Kyrie injury, everything else went wrong. They were just out of healthy bodies for so long. It was Gafford, it was PJ Washington missing time, it was Derek Lively the second missing time. So there's so many things that went wrong, and it all started with the trade that probably shouldn't have been made, and Luka's emotions before the game very much confirmed everything that had been said about him not wanting to go anywhere. And, you know, again, like they said, if you have concerns about him being a diva or concerns about him being needy or you know, poorly conditioned, you figure it out. Seeing that guy, seeing him, he was a top 5 player, generational talent, on a path to be one of the greatest of all time, potentially. You figure it out somehow because he's only going to get older. He's only going to mature. And I do think it was a little weird the way it happened. And like, you know, seeing the tribute video, obviously you have to do it. You have to honor him. and the thank you T-shirts in Slovenian. Again, just all of that stuff. They did a game day graphic that only featured images of him, like a timeline of him from when they drafted him to when he was there, and had like the silhouette of him doing a step back. And I was like, man, they better not unveil a silhouette of him doing a step back. I damn near thought that's what they were going to do, and have him just opposite ends of Dirk, but it was supposed to be the same thing. And I think I'll never get over the fact that it was supposed to be easy. Like, he and Dirk overlapped for a season, making it poetic that way. And he was going to be their next guy. Already got them to the finals once, had the first loss, and he was going to go back and lead them to a championship the same way Dirk was. History was basically down to the fact that they acquired him on draft night via trade. Like, it was just perfect. History was going to repeat itself again. And now here we are. We'll always wonder, what would have happened and what could have been. On the flip side, obviously, the Lakers, they're over the moon. And I think that will help him a lot get the closure needed, because I think that was a big part of him that was just kind of, and he's not going to just get over it. But I do think that going back there and receiving the love and staying in his own bed, I think that will help him a lot as he go forward, being fully present in LA. And to say that he has been fully present in LA and he's been playing the way he's playing, I think it's perfect timing going into the playoffs. So they had a really big win over the Thunder, and then he got ejected, which, that's another conversation for another time. But they were hanging right there with the Thunder. And I think that we were reminded that, we talked about some of their warts on the defensive end or whatever, but when you have Luka firing like that, and Austin Reeves and Rui's been playing well, continues to play well, LeBron is being LeBron, I think that just reminded us of what we'll see from them in the playoffs and why they're going to be so damn tough in the playoffs to eliminate, just because they got guys who are just built to say, F it. Like, you can try scheme against me, but I'm going to get mine. And I think that yesterday, because it was kind of like a playoff atmosphere, was a reminder of what we'll see from them.
Yeah, and on top of that too, like, JJ is an incredible head coach. And like we said, LeBron, one of the best basketball minds in the history of the game, if not the best. And then Luka, the way that he, can break down the game as well. Like, that's going to be a really, really tough team to beat 4 times in 7 games, just because the adjustments from game to game with those 3 minds together, on top of their entire coaching staff, obviously, that Redick's put together. But, that's going to be a tough out. How far can they really go? I think that will be determined by, like, is their defense for real? And can they keep it up for a full 7-game series? There's still a lot of question marks for LA, but I do think that is a team that, no one wants to see them in the first round, and we still don't really know how the Western Conference playoff picture is going to shape up. I mean, we're starting to get more of an idea, but they are specifically a team where some of these young teams that, we keep talking about every week, like Houston, like Memphis, like, they are not looking forward to seeing LeBron James and Luka Doncic in the first round. And, could they beat the Lakers? Absolutely. I think in the West, anybody can beat anybody genuinely on any given night, maybe outside of Oklahoma City, but outside of them, feels like anybody can get anybody. And, with that being said, that means the Lakers could be as early as a first round exit, and maybe they go to the NBA finals. And, they are a team where we talk about how the postseason is going to impact what they do in the offseason. I actually think the Lakers are probably like the least likely to be like knee-jerk reactive based on what happens in the playoffs. And maybe that allows them to play a little bit more freely. Guys, I mean, you're on a LeBron James team, you're always going to feel like you're sort of playing for your job. Right. But like, they know they have adjustments that need to be made in the offseason regardless of what happens. And they've gotten to see the Luka LeBron thing play out for a little bit. And now they're going to start to shape this team around Luka as we move towards the future. But, I am curious to see if that allows the Lakers to play a little bit more freely, knowing that like it's always championship or bust when you have LeBron James on your roster, but they're going to make big changes this offseason regardless. So they are not facing the same level of, I guess, like transactional pressure as like Denver is, as like some of these other teams, Memphis is, some of these teams that have hit the full reset button, towards the back end of the season.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that before we throw it to Baker. I think that doesn't get talked about enough. One, JJ Redick, first year, straight off through the podcast, Mike Down is about to win 50 games as his first year as a head coach. But also big shout out to Scott Brooks, Nate McMillan, Lindsey Harding. I know they have other people on the staff, but specifically Scott Brooks and Nate McMillan, 2 guys who have coached really, really good NBA teams are on JJ Redick's staff. So that's kudos to him for assembling a staff like that. I think it's a sum of all the parts, and I think that's helped them be as successful as they are. But like you said, I feel like that applies to the Lakers and a lot of other teams in the Western Conference. Could be a first round exit, could take the finals to 6 or 7 games, could win it all. So that makes it so exciting. And I can't wait till next week when we know the playoff matchups to preview them and talk about them. As always, thanks to everybody who tunes in to the pod, wherever you get your podcast. Please make sure to subscribe on all podcast platforms, as well as follow us on YouTube and Instagram at NBA Sound System Canada. For Kyle Irving, my name is Gil McGregor. Thanks for tuning in to us this week. We will catch you back on here, same time, same place next week.